Hello, I'm Dr. Q. Welcome to my channel. This is the 7th class of Principles of Economics. In this video, I cover market supply. In last class, video lecture 6, we were able to derive demand relationship using a mini store game. During the process, topics in law of demand, determinants that change demand, market demand are covered. Now, we switch to the other side of the market by focusing on the producers or sellers who make goods and services available and provide to the society. We need to stand in their shoes and think about their incentive to understand the supply. It will be nice if we can derive the supply curve like what we did in demand, but derivation of supply curve needs more complicated setting and knowledge from firm theory that we're not going to learn until firm theory. But still, we can build up some intuition by thinking about the situation when we need to supply. For example, if you're on job market facing 2 job offers with similar working condition, environment, workload, career path, distance to family, everything else are the same except one offer you $35,000 and the other one $38,000 per year. Which job would you take? Well, the answer is obvious that the $38,000 one is more desirable. You're more likely to sell your labor at a higher price. There is a positive relationship between price and quantity supplied. Let's formalize this hypothesis with real-world data. Here's a chart with a summary of price of corn and quantity supplied in the United States from the time period of 1988 to 2012, offered by the United States Department of Agriculture National Agriculture Statistics Service. The original source marked the blue bars as supply, which can be confusing. The blue bars here actually represent the quantity of corn supplied measured in billion bushels. The red line is the price of corn per bushel measured in dollars. We can say that the price and the quantity supplied of corn in general are on the same trend. Price goes up, quantity also goes up, while price decreases, quantity also declines. Let's pick some representative observations from the data to construct a sample to build a supply curve. Here they are. The first column is the price measured in dollars, while the second column provides the quantity supplied measured in billion bushels. If we plot the combination on 2-dimensional axis set, with the price on vertical axis, quantity on horizontal one, here they are. If we draw a smooth line linking all the combinations, we get a supply curve for corn in the United States. Supply curve or supply schedule shows that at each price level, there is an amount or quantity willing to be sold or supplied by the producers. This quantity is called quantity supplied using Q, capital Q, subscription S as abbreviation as we're discussing the supply side. There are individual supply curve by farmer, business, producer. If we aggregate the quantity supplied by each individual producer at each price level, we get the market supply curve. Here, we have the market supply curve for corn in the United States, which means we horizontally aggregate all the corn farmers' corn production at each price level and get a supply curve. We can easily say that the supply curve is upward sloping, showing that there is a positive relationship between price and quantity supplied. It means assuming other influencing factors unchanged, if price of the product increases, the quantity offered, supplied by producers goes up. If price decreases, the quantity supplied declines. This is called law of supply. In stock market, you hear people say, buy low, sell high. It actually is buy at low price, sell at high price. Law of demand is the buy low part, while here, law of supply is the sell high part. Now the question is, why? Why is there law of supply? The first explanation is quite obvious when I give you the example of job offers. Producers, sellers are likely to produce and sell more of the goods and services at a higher price as price acts as an incentive to producers. People want more money. Higher price attract people to produce or sell. The second explanation is challenging to explain as it demands knowledge from firm theory in later lectures. We will learn that the marginal cost, which is the extra cost related to producing one additional unit, eventually increases as we produce more and more goods and services. Businesses won't bear the cost themselves. They will pass the higher cost on to final consumers by charging a higher price. Therefore, quantity and price are positively correlating in supply. That's another explanation for law of supply. Similar to demand, there is a difference between change in supply and change in quantity supplied. If price changes from one level to another, then the quantity on second column of table or the quantity of a horizontal axis changes accordingly. Therefore, price changes, there is a movement along the same supply curve. Supply relationship between price and quantity supplied does not change. We simply have another quantity. As we are discussing supply, this quantity is called quantity supplied. If something happens at the same price level, original quantity supply does not hold anymore, instead move to a higher level, and this is true everywhere. We say there is an increase in supply, the supply shifts right-hand side. This does not mean that we have two supply relationships or curves at the same time. The original curve does not exist anymore. Instead, move to a new, higher level. For the convenience of comparison, the two of them are put on the same graph. If something happens, resulting in a lower quantity supplied at each price level, then there is a decrease in supply. Supply curve shifts left-hand side. Here is a summary of changes in quantity supplied and changes in supply. Now, what are the factors resulting in changes in supply and therefore shift supply curve? There are 6 determinants of supply or supply shifters. The first one is resource price. In video lecture 5, Production Possibilities Curve, we covered that producers employ economic resources to produce goods and services. In the pipeline of production, economic resources jump into one end, final products jump out the other end. Therefore, economic resources are also referred as input, while final products are output. Let's think about a particular production, chocolate. Businesses like Mars Wrigley, Godiva, Hershey, and Ferrero use cocoa beans, butter, milk powder, sugar as input to make output chocolate. If the price of the input, let's say price of cocoa beans, go up, producers have to pay more for the same amount of cocoa beans. It costs them more to produce the same amount of chocolate. And the producers won't bear the higher costs themselves and are likely to pass the cost on to final consumers by charging higher price. We can rephrase it as, for the same price, producers like to offer lower quantity, supply decrease, shifts left-hand side. Again, we keep the arrow horizontal to show at each price level how quantity changes to make it consistent across demand and supply, as I mentioned in previous class. On the other hand, if economic resources, the raw materials for production, are getting abundant, price goes down, making it more affordable to purchase for further production. Then for the same amount of output, it costs producers less to produce. They may pass this cost savings to final consumers. For example, when oil price plunged in April 2020, it hurts jobs created by oil drilling and exploration, as well as banking and investment sectors. However, lower oil price benefits manufacturers and other sectors where fuel costs are a primary concern. Oil price jobs, gasoline price jobs correspondingly. Again, to rephrase that, it means that at a given price, the quantity that is willing and able to be supplied by producers goes up, supply increases, shift right-hand side. The second determinant is technology. Technology apparently is a great thing. We covered in production possibilities expansion that technology can help us to produce more efficiently and productively. When there is a technology advancement, with the same cost price, more output can be produced. Supply increases, shifts right-hand side. Once we adopt a great new technology, we probably won't go back. But adopting wrong technology that is inefficient to a particular production may decrease supply. The third determinant is the number of sellers. There are about 300,000 farms growing corn in the United States. If we have another 100,000 similar farms join us, assuming other influencing factors not change, we would suspect that the quantity supplied at each price level goes up. There is an increase in supply. On the other hand, if a great number of farmers leave the industry and other factors no change, supply will decrease, shift left-hand side. The fourth one is government policy tax. Nobody likes tax. Tax works as a burden for production. If government imposes tax on production, it actually increases the cost of production. Again, businesses will pass the burden on to final consumers by charging a higher price, or at each price level produce a smaller amount, supply decrease, shift left-hand side. On the other hand, if there is a tax break or reduction in tax, it costs firm less to produce, supply increases, shifts right-hand side. Another government policy that is opposite to tax is a subsidy. Subsidy is the money granted by the government to support an industry or business so that the price of a good or service remain low and competitive. Government gives firm money to compensate partial cost of production. For example, there are subsidies on sustainable energy development, such as a wind farm and a solar panel. There are biofuels subsidies for farmers, subsidies to real industry. The support will provide businesses and firms bigger incentive to produce because it's cheaper to produce now. Supply increases, shifts right-hand side. And when subsidy decreases or government stops the support, the cost of production goes down, supply decrease, shift left-hand side. The fifth one is price of related goods. In demand, we discussed the substitutes and complementary goods for consumers. There are similar terms in production. Substitutes for consumers in demand means that consumer is indifferent of buying either one, like Coca-Cola and Pepsi. Substitutes in production means that a producer is indifferent in producing either one of the products. For example, Apple uses similar resource in producing MacBook Air and MacBook Pro. Coca-Cola and Pepsi are substitutes for consumers, but they are not produced by the same firm, actually by two competing firms separately. Therefore, they are not substitutes in production. Here are some examples for substitutes in production. The Coca-Cola Company produces all types of beverages. The beverages within each category are produced using similar resources. For example, within sparkling soft drinks category, there are original Coca-Cola, Diet Coke, Cherry Coke, and Sprite, Fanta. The company can easily switch from one production onto another, based upon the needs of the market. These beverages are substitutes in production. Another example, company uses a similar resource to produce towel and a bathrobe. The two items are substitutes in production for that company. Automobile company normally produces all types of vehicles, such as sedan and truck. They are substitutes in production. For those products, they're competing for the same resources to be produced. If sedan gains more popularity, price goes up. Automobile company would divert resources originally used in trucks production onto sedan production to earn more profit. Production for trucks will be sacrificed. Truck supply decreases, shifts left-hand side. On the other hand, if price of sedan, substitute of truck in production decreases, then sedan is relatively less desirable to produce. Automobile company will switch more resources onto truck production, supply increases. In demand, there are complementary goods for consumers. It means that consumers demand both items together to serve the need, like gasoline and fuel cars. But they are in general not produced by the same firm. In production, the complementary goods refer to two products are produced in the same production procedure simultaneously, like byproducts. For example, cattle farmers produce steak and leather simultaneously. Coal-fired power plants with a desulfurization system produce electricity for consumers and synthetic gypsum for wallboard company at the same time. Back to our cattle farmer example. If steak price goes up, more steak is produced. Therefore, more leather is produced at the same time. Supply of leather increases, shifts right-hand side. On the other hand, if steak price goes down as people try to eat less red meat, less steak is produced, and therefore supply for leather decreases, shifts left-hand side. The last determinant is change in producers' expectation about price. Generally speaking, the production of goods and services within a time period is given. For example, once corn is grown, the harvest is pretty much fixed. Farmers cannot grow more until next year. Once harvested, farmers can choose to sell now or sell later. If producers suspect that price is going up in future, say next month, then they will hold off the sale now and sell at a higher price in future. Supply for now declines, shifts left-hand side. If the price will go down in future, then it is more profitable to sell now at a relatively higher price. Supply for now increases, shifts right-hand side. Let's do a practice. Please pause and come back for the answer. Alright, the question asks if there is an increase in automobile workers' wage, how that influences the supply of automobiles. Let's think about the relationship between automobile workers and automobile production. Company hires workers, employ their labor for automobile production. Labor here is the economic resource or input. When wage of workers go up, it means that the company has to pay more to produce the same amount of cars. They will pass this burden on to final consumers by charging a higher price. Alternatively, a smaller amount of cars is produced at a given price. Supply decreases, shift left-hand side. On the graph, a shift from S2 to S1 depicts the description. Did you choose the right one? Alright, that's all I have for this video. I will cover market equilibrium in next lecture. Thank you for watching. Please like or share the video and subscribe my channel for more lectures in economics.